Hello and welcome to Midlife Meltdown. I'm Ian, and in today's video I wanted to cover the subject of the apparent delight that narcissists take in the abuse they cause, and in particular the narcissistic smirk. But before I go any further, if you find these videos helpful and you'd like to help me reach more people, then please subscribe, hit the like button and leave any comments or questions you have in the comment section below. I will respond to them, and if there's any content specifically you would like to see, please leave that in the comment section as well. So the question of whether narcissists enjoy what they do is a very complicated one, and I was prompted to do this video by a conversation I was having with one of the viewers in the comments section. So if you've been on the receiving end of narcissistic abuse, it's very easy to see why it appears that the narcissist enjoys hurting other people, enjoys the abuse. And I think to some extent there's some truth in that, but I do think it's a more complicated picture than it appears on the surface. So I thought I'd give my opinion on what I think is going on and focus on a particular aspect that I found enraging during my time, and that's the apparent smirk, the smile, the glee that narcissists tend to get when recalling specific events or seeing that their manipulation is working. So to start off with, I asked the question of, do I think narcissists do what they do and hurt people purely for pleasure? And I think the clear answer to that is no. I don't think hurting people is the primary objective of the narcissist. Their primary objective is to secure narcissistic supplies, to get what they need to feel emotionally stable. Now that usually means taking whatever they need at whatever cost it takes. So I think it's less of a question of, are they deliberately trying to hurt people, or is the hurt just a consequence that they don't care about, that they're unable to care about? And I think that's the reality of it. However, I believe the abuse happens in stages. And the very first stage, what I call the feeding frenzy, when the narcissist has acquired a new supply and is indulging in it, is extremely abusive. And I think that's when their little compassion that they have in general is at its minimum, and they will take whatever they need from anyone and seem to revel in that experience. And I liken that very much to a heroin addict that's just indulging whatever they need at whatever cost, regardless of their own health, regardless of anyone else's feelings. They just have an absolute need to get a fix to avoid the pain. And I'm fairly certain in this stage their objective isn't to cause pain, it's just that they have zero regard for the pain they're causing to anybody. They're ultimately completely consumed with what they need. As that fades and things start to calm down and things move into a much more structured, manipulative, controlling type of behaviour, where they're looking to manage the sources of supply, whether that's you and another or multiple people, then I believe there is some kind of pleasure derived from being successful at that manipulation. And this is where I think the narcissistic smirk comes in. Now, if you've ever experienced this, it's an extremely difficult thing to see. So in my experience, it was constantly when being called or recalling specific activity, or, playing between two sources, between me and a boyfriend, between me and someone else, an involuntary smirk would appear on my ex's face. And it's extremely enraging to see someone apparently enjoy the hurt they've caused, the damage they've done, the lives that they've destroyed. But I don't think it's quite that simple. I don't think they take pleasure in the recalling of it. I think it's more a case of someone being satisfied with the mastery of their craft. I see it very similar to someone who spent years refining a hunting technique and going and spending a week in the woods just to track down one animal and kill it in close quarters. And while that might be a very brutal thing to do, the satisfaction of going through the mastery of that activity and see it come to fruition, I believe is what they're feeling. They're looking at the fruits of their labour, that years of trying to work out how to manipulate people, and to see two or more people completely entranced by them and completely hooked by their behaviour, I think is a form of huge satisfaction to them. But the slightly darker or more sad side of the narcissistic smirk is that I believe that smirk occurs because there's a lot of shame involved. And I think in one way enjoying or laughing about something is a coping mechanism to deal with the feeling of shame that they know deep down that they have. I don't believe there's any true escape from the moral quandary or the divergence from any set of morals that behaviour involves. And I believe that smirk is a slight acknowledgement of that they know that they're on the wrong path. And it's almost easier when confronted with the facts of it to make a light joke out of it than it is to acknowledge and feel sad about it. And it's this kind of display, I believe, that leads people to think they're truly evil, Whereas I think actually what's happening is they're coping in the only way they know how. Either way, it's a very difficult thing to witness and will normally come out around specific examples of being confronted with the reality of what they've done, or specific examples of behaviour that they've engaged in and effectively got away with. And the only thing I would advise to help cope with the feeling of seeing that or witnessing it is to really truly believe that reconciliation will come at the end, that ultimately we all need to lay on our deathbed knowing what actions we've taken and knowing how we've behaved. In the absence of religion myself, I rely on the fact that I truly, genuinely believe that that is not a source of happiness, that true happiness, true contentment comes from living a peaceful, good, productive life, and that ultimately these things will accumulate and come back to you. But if you are going through the early stages of narcissistic abuse, and if you haven't seen my previous video on what I believe the 4 stages are, I'd recommend watching that. It can be a very difficult thing to experience and can add to the trauma you're going through, to believe that there's a person that you believed loved you, that you loved them, that was special to you, that you were special to them, that is now deriving some real pleasure from causing you pain. So I would recommend trying to tell yourself and try and understand that it's not real pleasure. There is some satisfaction there, but ultimately it's a coping mechanism, and this isn't a path to joy. It's ultimately something they're doing that is a very negative aspect, but at that very intense moment in their life, it's giving them the sensation of pleasure. And you have to believe there is a true difference between a temporary sensation of pleasure and true happiness. And that's ultimately how I'd summarize it. If you believe the narcissist is truly enjoying what they're doing and gaining pleasure from it, then ask yourself, do you think that a severe heroin addict is ultimately enjoying what they're doing? Because I think the issues are very similar. You know, most heroin addicts will start doing heroin because it feels good, but then ultimately end up doing it to avoid the pain they're feeling. And I think that is very directly related to narcissists as well. I don't think most of the time they're deriving pleasure from it. They're doing it to avoid feeling the pain of the psychological wound they have. And that's my advice to anyone on the receiving end of this, is don't focus on whether or not you think that person's truly enjoying it. Understand that person is acting in a very negative way, and ultimately our behaviours and our actions catch up to us later on in life, and it's not the path to leading a happy, wholesome life. And try to focus all of your attention on making sure that you're doing that with your life. Lead the best possible life you can. And that's it for today's short video. If there's anything you'd like to see in future videos, then please leave me a comment in the comment section below, and I'll try and get to them as quickly as possible.